Today, let's talk about what happens when you hit absolute rock bottom. This is a story about unimaginable persecution, about deep personal loss, and about facing total rejection. But it's also about how those very moments of despair can actually become the foundation for a whole new destiny. So let's dive in.
And no, that is not a metaphor. For 3 whole years, this was the grim reality for the Prophet Muhammad and his entire clan. This was a deliberate, systematic campaign to starve them into submission, and it's where the story of extreme hardship really begins.
So, about 7 years into his mission, the ruling tribe of Makkah, the Quraysh, they decided that, just harassing him wasn't cutting it anymore. To really crush this new faith, they felt they had to completely isolate the Prophet and everyone who stood with him. So they trapped them all in this narrow, barren valley called Shib Abu Talib and laid down a brutal siege. What's just so stunning here is how complete this boycott was. The leaders wrote these terms down and, get this, to make them feel sacred and absolutely unbreakable, they hung the document inside the Kaaba itself, the holy sanctuary right in the heart of Makkah. This wasn't just about economics, this was a social death sentence. The goal was simple: force them to give up or starve.
And this is where you see how the conflict split families right down the middle. You've got the Prophet's uncle Abu Talib, who by the way was not a Muslim, but out of family honor, he gathered his whole clan to protect his nephew. Then you have his other uncle, Abu Lahab, who did the exact opposite. He would literally go to the trade caravans coming into the city and use his own money to outbid everyone, buying up all the food just to make sure his own starving relatives couldn't get a single thing. I mean, to really get a sense of the desperation, you just have to listen to the people who were there. The cries of hungry children would echo through the valley. This account from Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, it's not just a story, it's a raw look into the sheer will to survive when you have absolutely nothing left. So, after 3 long years, how did this brutal siege finally end? Well, it was this incredible combination of human conscience and what believers saw as a divine miracle. On the human side, 5 men from the leadership of Quraysh just couldn't stomach the cruelty anymore, and they decided to publicly stand up against the treaty. Right around that same time, the Prophet announced that God had sent a worm to eat the entire boycott document inside the Kaaba, leaving only the words, "In your name, O God." When the leaders went to check, it was true. The pact was destroyed and the boycott collapsed. You'd think after all that, things would finally get better. But the relief was tragically brief. The end of this trial led straight into one of the most painful periods of the Prophet's entire life. It's heartbreaking. Just days after the boycott was lifted, his uncle and protector, Abu Talib, passed away. And then, only a few days after that, his wife of 25 years, his closest confidant, and the very first believer, Khadijah, also died. Just like that, the 2 people who had been his shields against the world were gone. He actually called this time the Year of Sorrow, and for good reason. Abu Talib was his protection in public. Without him, the physical attacks and insults from the Quraysh got way, way worse. And Khadijah, she was his comfort and support at home. Losing both at once left him more exposed and vulnerable than he had ever been. With Makkah basically becoming unbearable, he started looking for a new beginning. He walked 120 kilometers to the city of Taif, really hoping that its people might actually listen to his message. But what he found there was what he would later call the hardest day of my life. He met with the city's 3 main chiefs, but they didn't just disagree with him, they met him with pure arrogance and ridicule. They dismissed him cruelly, and then because they were afraid he might influence their young people, they ordered him to get out of their city. But they didn't just ask him to leave, they turned the city's mob against him. They actually lined the streets with thugs and children who threw rocks at him and his companion Zayd. For 2.5 kilometers, that's over 3,000 agonizing steps, they were chased, insulted, and pelted with stones until their feet were bleeding and they finally collapsed in a vineyard outside the city. And here, at his absolute lowest point, physically wounded, completely rejected, utterly alone, he didn't curse them. He didn't ask for revenge. Instead, he turned to God and made this incredibly raw and vulnerable prayer. His only concern, even in that moment of agony, wasn't his own suffering. It was his relationship with God. And from this moment of the deepest possible earthly rejection, the entire story shifts to the highest heavenly honor. What happened next is seen as God's direct answer to his pain.
Not long after that horrible day in Taif, the Prophet was taken on a miraculous journey known as the Isra and Miraj. It was a direct form of comfort, of validation right from the divine, at a time when humanity had offered him absolutely none. So this journey had two incredible parts. First was the Isra, a night journey that took him from Makkah all the way to Jerusalem in an instant, where he led all the prophets who came before him in prayer. Then came the Mi'raj, his ascension up through the heavens, a spiritual journey that ended in the very presence of God, reinforcing his mission and giving him unbelievable strength. So, armed with this renewed spiritual strength, the Prophet returned to his mission back on earth. And the breakthrough he had been searching for so long, it didn't come from some powerful tribe or a wealthy leader. It came from a small, unexpected meeting. It happened during the annual pilgrimage season in Makkah. He met just 6 young men from a faraway city called Yathrib. And unlike pretty much everyone else he'd ever spoken to, they listened and they believed. These 6 men, they were the very first seeds of what would soon become a thriving new community. And you won't believe how fast things grew from there. The very next year, those 6 men came back, but they brought 6 more with them to make a pledge of faith. The year after that, a whole delegation of 75 people, including women, came and made a second, much more serious pledge. They promised to defend the Prophet with their lives just as they would their own families. During that final, crucial pledge, one of the men asked a pretty direct question. If we fulfill this huge promise, if we risk everything for you, what do we get in return? And the Prophet's answer was just one single word: paradise. They immediately declared it the most profitable trade they would ever make. So that really leaves us with this question, doesn't it? The same man who was stoned and bleeding out of one city was now being welcomed as the leader of another. It's an incredible testament to faith, to patience, and to the idea that sometimes our greatest turning points are born from our absolute hardest days.